today's edition of Social Services Committee. Chris, do you have the roll call? Okay, thank you. Let me remind you of the rules and procedures. We're operating under our hybrid meeting participation policy. Staff and delegates, keep your mics off until you're requested by the moderator. Rules for delegations continue to apply. Full corporate policy 50 regarding virtual participation is available online to review. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare this morning? I see none. I'd like to get a mover and seconder for all the business before us today, if I could, please. Moved by Councillor Vanderstel, seconder Councillor Celeste. Thank you very much.
Point of order, there's no sound.
If the committee can hear me, if you guys can just bear with us, we are having some technical difficulties in the room, so just bear with us and we will be back momentarily.
We could hear that.
Good morning, John. You're on mute. I guess we're having some technical difficulties.
There we are. Can you hear me now, Dave?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was trying to get into this system and I'm struggling.
Yeah, and we're all just waiting for the
I think we're also
difficulties.
still live to YouTube.
Yeah.
Although Councillor Wall, are you vice chair? Do we have quorum? No, I'm just kidding.
I was actually going to say we should consider doing some carols.
Yeah, forget last night's social. We can have our social now.
We're gonna have to help the city get high-speed internet. That's the problem.
I hear they're bringing that to the county.
Working on it. Working on it.
You can tell from Councillor Miller's crisp picture. Is your bridge open, Councillor Miller?
Yeah, it is. That was an odd thing what happened. So
Yeah, that was.
Members of the committee, just so you are aware, we are still live to YouTube during your discussion.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
They see us being friendly and getting along. Nothing wrong with
I
that.
think I'll call a recess as
we
the
go.
vice chair. How about that? Am I the vice chair?
I thought you were.
Yeah, we just nominated you and voted you in.
So we are on recess until we reconvene.
Some technical difficulties this morning.
You're still live, Councillor.
We got the weather report there, Councillor Bell.
Did you?
Yes.
I got my coffee and my dear wife brought coffee in for me, which was very kind of her.
There we go. Mine comes courtesy of Darth Vader.
Councillor Wall, how was the poutine yesterday?
Spectacular.
Was it?
They are renowned for their attention to detail and high quality ingredients. So,
You seem to be enjoying yourself.
oh yes, and me and many others. Very filling.
Yeah, it got me through that that planning meeting last night. Right, cool, calm as a cucumber because I was full of my Quebecois side, my poutine side.
I'm still full.
Yeah, actually, same.
If I could ask our staff, there's a number of them that have Brantford panelists up. I feel like Chris here. Chris Gocha usually reminds everybody. Could you please change Brantford panelists to your name? It's three down here that are Brantford panelists. That'd be great. Thank you.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, the Charlie Ward Room, making its first official appearance.
You can go ahead.
Are we live now?
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome, guys. Welcome again. I gather you probably didn't hear a word I said at the outset. So welcome everybody to the meeting today. The clerk has taken the roll. I won't reiterate the rules and procedures, but now that we've got a hybrid meeting, there's a bit different management system in terms of chairing. So I'll be recognizing the people physically present in the room first. Then I'm going to come to the list of you folks that are remote from home or from your offices elsewhere. Okay. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare this morning? Okay. I'd like to get a mover and seconder. I believe I had one, but I can't remember who the heck it was.
Councillor Vanderstel and Councillor Antosky.
Vanderstel, Antosky, mover and seconder. Are there any separations that you'd like to see today? Mayor.
5.1.
Anyone else? Councillor Miller.
5.4, please.
Going once, going twice. Councillor LaFerriere.
5.3, please.
We will go to the question on the remainder of the agenda. I'll ask you for a show of hands. Physically, those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much.
It's your cell phone.
First item for separation, Mayor Davis. When you get a minute.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's really just a question, and it's kind of related to 5.2 as well, because 5.2 was the quarterly survey of the homeless situation in our communities. And 5.1 is an update on our shelter system and telling us what's going to be in place for the winter. So my question to staff is pretty simple. Based on the data you collected through the second quarter, which is in 5.2, are you reasonably confident that we will have the capacity to see us through the winter?
Good morning, Deb Schlichter, Acting Director, Housing Homelessness through the chair. We do feel, based on the data that we have today, that we are well situated for the winter. Of course, things can change quickly, so we are always watching the numbers to make sure that our system is ready to respond.
Okay, and if you can just summarize for the viewer what our capacity consists of, which is a bit different through the winter than what it is in the summer.
Yes, that's true. The quarterly report from HIFIS shows numbers that are a bit lower because it's the summertime. That's July, August, and September time period. And that doesn't reflect the year-round situation. We know in the wintertime, the demand is higher. There are some people who might be not using the shelter system during the summer that will use it during the winter. So our numbers now are at 68 spaces for adults. With 8 spaces for youth on top of that. So we do have, in the winter, we're adding the extra 10 beds that we're going to be, that are reflected in the report.
And my last question, do you have surge capacity?
Through the chair, what we use for those times where we need to stretch the system is our hotel motels situation. That's where we have the flexibility to add if we need.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to thank staff for designing a report to us and highlighting for us the arrangements made for this winter, which appears hopefully will give us and adequate supply and capacity of the shelters.
Mayor, thank you. Councillor Slush, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Deb. Deb, do we reach out to folks that we see are, well, describe the situation and you can react to it.
My apologies for interrupting, please. I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing. It sounds like somebody's typing or something. Sorry, I'm not hearing the speakers.
I think it's the clerk.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Deb, I just wanted to know, I'll give you the example that I'm thinking of. There's folks that I saw starting to camp out last night on Market Street at the dental office on the corner of Market, and I'm not sure the side street. This morning when I came down to City Hall, there's probably 4 or 5 of them all snuggled up on the porch sleeping. Do we go down there and talk to those folks and tell them that we have warm accommodation where they could stay?
Yes, through the chair, we do have outreach workers working throughout the week, also on the weekend, who are out and about to talk to people directly and to offer the services that are available. If they are interested and willing, we can connect them to those services right away.
Okay, is that one of the spots we monitor daily? Because daily they're there. So
yes, that's one of the spots.
Yeah. Okay,
we will continue. Sorry,
okay.
We continue to offer them services because sometimes persistence is helpful, and we will continue to offer that. So one day you might refuse, but the next day you might be willing.
Okay, thanks, Deb.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councillor, thank you. I have Councillor Vandersveld in the queue next. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Deb. Thank you for the clear and concise report. I do have an indication from a number of different sources outside of this room that we really never have gone over 100% capacity on our shelter system historically, at least in this term of council. Would you say that that would be a fact?
Through the chair, I would say in the past, perhaps, but we are starting to see, so already in December this month, we are seeing our shelter system at full capacity. So we are starting to hit those numbers.
Okay. Now, when we do our pick counts, how much does that actually cost us to do one?
I will let Anthony answer that one. He's the manager of housing stability. It's not a cost to, it's funding that we get through Reaching Home, which is federal funding.
Okay, it's not a cost to us, but
no.
The numbers that we're seeing, there may be some hard to service clientele. There may be some hidden homeless. Historically, and according to your report, the numbers are estimated to be low in every pit count. Is that just standard? Is that what they're seeing in Barrie, Guelph, Kingston, Milton, Peterborough, Chatham, Kent? Do they all have estimated low amounts because they can't find everybody?
Through the chair, I would say in general, pit counts are underrepresented counts of people because it's difficult to reach everyone. It's about the methodology, and each pit count has different methodology. How far do you reach? How wide do you go? And who do you count? So methodology does make a difference, but we always consider pit counts to not be the full representation because of that.
Okay, so being that they're all estimated to be low, and we are at our service capacity right now in December, and presumably we may hit that kind of line again. In a sense, you could argue that we are not prepared for, if everybody were to choose to use a shelter service of whatever kind to their needs, to suit their needs, we are indeed under-serviced as even at, I don't think we're at 48 per 100,000 population. Is that where we're standing right now? So you could argue that we're actually below what the capacity would be for demand. Am I getting that number right?
Through the chair, the system has to adjust depending on the time of the year and about demand. So right now, we have the 10 extra beds at Rosewood only to the end of December. Our report is saying that we need to have those extended throughout the winter to keep up with the demand that we have right now. So we already know the shelter system is hitting that occupancy high point, and we need to maintain that level of beds. Otherwise, the end of December, those 10 beds are lost.
Right. And we do these pit counts quarterly, correct?
Every 2 years is a pit count. We are planning to do a registry week in the early part of next year. Registry week is another way of trying to count people. And the good thing about doing counts is you want to do them at different times of the year and get a different sort of picture of what is going on, but they are only snapshots. They're a snapshot of that one day in that year. HIFIS is our more consistent daily data that we have, and it's more robust. It tells us a bigger picture.
Right. Okay.
That's fine, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you for my time.
Councillor Toski, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the report, Deb. This is great. I have a number of questions, and I'm going to refer to the chart that's kind of laying out January to April of this year. And you just answered some of it. See, you're seeing an uptick already going into it, but I'm having trouble putting some of the pieces together. So if we look at, for instance, Salvation Army and Rosewood, that have the same number of beds, why do we have such a much higher number of 90% occupancy rate of days, number of days at Salvation Army than at Rosewood? We only had 18 days that reached the 90% capacity last year. Why is that so different?
Through the chair, the shelters are operated by different service providers, and there are different people choose to go to different shelters for different reasons. And so we know Rosewood has the ability to be co-ed, whereas Salvation Army is not. So people can have options of where they want to go. We can't control that part. However, because it's a system where one fills up, we have the other one to use as well. So that helps to be a system where you're coordinating between the different facilities to make sure that all the beds are filled when needed.
Okay, so that leads to some other questions. So if we have oversight of these and we have different operators, do they get to set their own rules, or is there any consistency, or do we have the same set of rules for each shelter?
Through the chair, we do have consistent rules. Part of their contract are part of those policies to follow throughout the system. So the system has consistency. The shelter providers are part of creating those policies. So those policies are facilitated and in engaging service providers in setting those standards.
So if our residents have choices, have we done any investigation as to why the rate might be so much lower at Rosewood than Salvation? I'm just seeing that we have capacity there, and maybe it's different going into December. And so I'm concerned that that we have such a difference in capacity. And further to that, then we're putting people into overflow, which in theory we don't need, except for cases like families and pets. And we've got 743 bed nights at the motels, and we know the situation at the motels. We have a motel that has applied to expand their business by 10 rooms, and my concern is that we're creating that business case for them to create not such a great situation, both for the residents that we're trying to put shelter over their heads and for the other clientele that comes in. So I don't expect an answer right now, but maybe if we can look into that to just really see what the disparity is, and if there's something that we can adjust there to make sure that that we're filling everybody up as best we can.
if I could respond, this chart is from this previous winter.
Yes.
January to April.
Yep.
That's not the picture right now in December. Both Salvation Army and Rosewood are both at capacity. So.
Okay, yeah, and in theory, I would say that I would have thought to see Rosewood higher numbers because they accept a wider range of clientele. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I don't see any other requests to speak, so I've got a couple of points I'd like to raise, Deb. We spent a lot of money with respect to providing our downtown security patrol. I would have to think that those folks would be able to tell us exactly where folks are living in the wild. Do we have that interaction to be able to conduct our point in time study accurately?
Through the chair, our point in time count takes in information from all sources to find where people are, where they might be located. We also have the outreach teams who know where the encampments are as well. And so part of doing a point in time count is going out where we know people to reside.
So my question was, are we utilizing the info from the security team?
Yes, they are part of that process. We do connect with both police and security.
Now, we know where these folks are living out in the wilds. Are our staff going to the source every day? For instance, the dentist's office porch. Are we there every day?
Through the chair, our outreach teams are out in the community throughout every day of the week. And yes, they know the hot spots that are continuously being used. And they also have to investigate the one-time locations that pop up and that we hear about. So they are there on a regular basis as well. And they're working together with other groups of doing outreach. So the BDOT team, the security team, the bylaws team, we're working in coordination with all of them.
So every day?
Yes.
Okay. When we funded the shelter on West Street a number of years ago, we found that there was a significant difference once we began insisting to have our folks there every morning as the folks staying there were leaving to go to do what they do in the daytime, which for most of them is the job. So are we restricted by our hours of operation in terms of being able to be where folks are when they wake up in the morning?
Through the chair, I can let Anthony speak a little bit more about the details of the hours of operation.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Thanks, Deb. Yeah, thanks. Through the chair. We've actually increased our hours of operation for outreach. The HRC is going out every morning with the BDOT team going out in the afternoons and into the early evenings. So I feel at this point, our outreach services have actually expanded. The outreach team at the HRC is going to those hot spots, counselor, and they're also attending the shelters first thing in the mornings to engage before folks hit the street. What we're seeing a lot of.
I don't know if your idea of first thing in the morning is the same as mine. Could you be more specific?
So typically around 9 o'clock, and that's after breakfast is served and when they are able to get out and do. Understandably, yes, 6 o'clock wouldn't be conducive to this population, but 9 o'clock they're always at the shelters and feet on the street.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Other requests to speak, folks? I don't see any. We'll then go to the question on 5.1. Physical show of hands, please. Those in favor. And that carries. We'll move on now to the next item, which is 5.3, and that was separated by Councillor Laferriere. Would you like to go ahead? You've got the floor, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I imagine to Deb, but to staff, this may be a bit more of a philosophical question. I agree wholeheartedly with the need for the security here, but how do we prevent security costs from becoming a huge part of the cost analysis of housing and homelessness. It's we're looking at almost $250,000 this year for this area. When we look, we see places like Hamilton and Toronto have spent millions on enforcement that could have gone into building of homes. What can we do to either lower this number in the future, or what investments do we need to make in order to have this be lower so that we can put more of that money into housing folks?
Through the chair, it is a delicate balancing process. We do not want to spend all of our resources on enforcement issues. We do believe that tenants have the right to feel safe in their homes. And so we are trying to provide a cost-effective opportunity, which is the use of security teams that can be available and on site. So we're trying to find a way that doesn't enhance that to the point where it doesn't make sense, but also to have a good relationship between the tenant and security teams, that they are working together to encourage their communities to be a safe place for everybody.
That's my question.
Thank you, Council. Again, I see no further requests to speak on this item, so we will go to the vote. Those in favor, raise your hands. Thank you. That carries. And now we're on to item 5.4, which was separated by Councillor Miller. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if some of these questions spills over to the LHC agenda, I apologize. But my understanding is what we're trying to raise $55 million in non-debt capital for the affordable housing target we set of, I think, 506 units. The city's portion is almost 40 million. We're just over 50 million in the county. My question to staff, through you, Mr. Chair, is through the sale of the Woodlawn units, is that money going into that $55 million portion, or is that over and above?
Through the chair, the fund, the proceeds from the sale of the Woodlawn properties goes into the fund, the reserve, that is for new development.
Okay, so it doesn't help with the $55 million bill then?
It goes towards that 55 million, yes, because those reserves, the sale of assets, are counted towards that number.
Okay. Does it go to the city's portion, or does it go to the county's portion, or does it go to the whole thing?
I'll let the finance people speak to that, but my understanding is because it is a LHC shared funded program, that it is a shared funded proceeds.
And again, I apologize if some of this spills over to the LHC agenda.
Maybe I will, to answer Councillor Miller's question, I will try to answer. I don't know if I can speak specifically to the LHC, but I'll just go back over, if I can, the financing plan. This is the city's portion of the financing plan, which is in the Mayor's Housing Task Force. Key component is a sale of 282 Stanley Street, which is $14 million in the plan. And then the increase in property tax of $2 million over 6 years, which is another 12 million, which is, I think, roughly 26 million. After that, there's some savings from the mortgages, and then also some sale of some other municipal assets. And City Council just approved sale of 84 Market Street, close to $3 million. To go to that, to the 7.6 million. Woodlawn was not considered in that. That's new information. So staff have not determined yet where the reserves will go at this point in time. But with that, the original plan was this. We're going back, looking at it, and making sure how it's allocated. And and where the monies will go, but there was mortgage savings of the retirement of many mortgages that were transferred over from the province of Ontario, as well as the sale of 282 and the increase in property taxes.
Okay. Is it possible maybe to get a more fulsome answer at maybe the next meeting? As you say, Mr. Hutchins, you're not quite, we haven't quite determined how that money is going to be allocated, I guess. I was wondering if, if we could maybe get that further information at the next meeting.
Councilor Miller, could you think of some wording to add? I'll come back to you for an amendment to get that. Okay.
So I apologize, Mr. Chair. What did you say?
You're asking for additional information, and what I'm saying is, if you could take a minute and think of wording for an amendment to ask for that, we'll amend this item before us, and you can have that back. Okay.
Sure. I mean, I can do that right now. I just I'd like to make an amendment. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'll wait till you're ready. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Davis, did I overlook your request to speak? Sorry, okay. So now we're on to Councilor Bell. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 points, if I may. The first one is really to say congratulations to city staff for the Sturton Avenue facility that opened up a couple of weeks ago. I've heard nothing but good feedback on that. And to illustrate the point, the other day, Mayor Bailey and I were with a member of the Sensity organization in Paris. That is effectively a deaf, blind residential facility. And they have been awarded a grant, and they want to build something equivalent to what we saw at Sturton Avenue. And they're anxious to move on. And I know they've reached out to county staff for potential locations. I would like it that if we could have city staff also reach out to Sensity, because the more people that are looking for a location, they're looking for a place for 3 or 4 rooms, 3 or 4 dwellings around a central facility. As I say, they've got some money to start the ball rolling, and I would appreciate if we could move that forward. So that's my first request. My second question is around the procurement process that you've put underway to review 5 sites in the city. Is this a process that is going to be joint city-county? Because I read the next line that housing staff are working with county staff to identify sites. It seems like you're moving ahead more quickly on city sites, and maybe that's just the nature of things. And if we can, if we need to encourage our county staff to work harder and faster, I'd like to see this done collectively in the spirit of a new cost-sharing agreement. So I will leave that as a question to get an update on that. I'll give you my third question now, and that comes to the conclusion of this report, which says, first line, developing affordable housing requires the collective effort of municipal, not-for-profit, and the private sector. And that is the only place I see the word the private sector effectively in this report. Could I get an update on what we're doing to encourage the private sector to help us in this effort to create more affordable housing? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilor, are you expecting that answer now?
If it is now, yes, and if not, I'm appreciative of it at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I can answer the 3 questions. The first one around Sensity, staff have been working with Sensity for quite a while. In fact, the Trillium Way proposal has 5 units dedicated to Sensity, specially for their client group. And we've been encouraging them to consider other options. So we are working very well with them and understand their needs and are part of that process. The second question around procurement, You are correct that these 5 sites that were identified are all city located sites, and that came from direction from this committee. We are also actively looking at the Trillium site as one, and also Russell Heights as another one to help work with the county on development at those sites. But we are wanting to go through the list of sites that are already identified in the county to see what the priority would be from the county's point of view. So we're not negating those. These are just the 5 that this committee identified first.
That's fine, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Laferriere, you have the floor. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Let me lower my hand here. I'm not sure where else to bring this up, but here might be the best spot because it's related to housing and quality of life more generally. I've received some correspondence from folks who have been who are from the city, who are being placed in hotels in the county, and they appeared to be unaware of the Brant Transit service that's available to them. So they've been walking to Brantford to receive services when they could utilize Brant Transit. I'm just wondering if, Councillor Vanderstelt's eyes tell the story there. So I'm just wondering if we can make sure that housing staff and social services staff maybe are briefed on Brant Transit, and we can direct on our end, Sheena and Allison and folks to connect with Brantford staff to explain maybe some options or to look into some options for transit. Because I know you have a bit of a chit system in Brantford with your transit system, but we could develop that as well, where the service user is not paying for it directly, but we just need to get our 2 staffs together to work that out. So I just wanted to flag that and ask if that's possible. And this was the only area I felt I could ask that question.
We can certainly follow up on that important concern. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. And Councillor Vanderstelt, the floor is yours.
For 4 minutes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Through you to Deb, did I not see, was Trillium Way not listed in one of the agendas this morning? Was it? It's not this one, it's the next one then, I guess?
It is in this report.
In this report, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah. So in terms of the collaborative efforts that Councillor Bell was referring to, as Marlene and Deb are keenly aware, as some of our planning staff, if there is a crane over a building in the city of Brantford, you can guarantee that I've had firsthand contact with the development group or the private developer that has come in to do the work. Instead of just waiting for them to get a chance to read some of our literature, either our CIP incentives or other incentives that we have to offer for affordable housing inclusion into new development in the city of Brantford, I make sure that we actually set up a meeting and we have that conversation. That was a tradition that Councillor Weaver and myself initiated in the city of Brantford. I'd be more than willing to carry on that type of discussion with developers that come into the county of Brant as well, insofar as it would set up that initial meeting where we can talk about partnerships and we can flush out the details of what that actually looks like in terms of how we help one another put together various levels and stages of affordable housing throughout the city of Brantford and the county of Brant. But I believe it does come from those truly dedicated collaborative attempts to put people together in the same room and talk about what our opportunities are, rather than just leave it in a report somewhere. So that's an active pursuit that I undertake in Rick's absence and with an open mind toward those creative partnerships. And I just thought I'd make comment on that, Mr. Chair and Councillor Bell. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you very much. Councillor Miller, would you like to introduce your amendment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's pretty straightforward. I'd like to move that staff clarify for the January social services meeting how the proceeds from the sale of the Woodlawn units are allocated for additional affordable units, and how these funds relate to the $55 million of non-debt capital to be raised by the city/county. Looking for a seconder.
Seconder is Councillor Vanderstel. On the amendment, is there any discussion? We'll go to the vote. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Bell, you're now in the queue to speak to the motion as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really, I was just, Deb said that she had answers to all of my 3 questions and you only allowed her to answer 2. So I'm anxious to hear what she would say about the 3rd one. But before that, just in response to Councillor Van der Stelt, I didn't miss the Russell Heights and I didn't miss Trillium Way, but I took this list of potential prospects in the city as over and above what we already knew. So it's the next generation. And I'm anxious that this requires a production line of sites for us to actually hit the target. So I'm anxious that, you know, we keep on bringing forward sites as quickly as we can. And I want to be seeing that we bring forward sites just as much from the county as we do from the city. But if I could go back to Deb and ask if she would answer my 3rd question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, we do work with the private sector. As Councillor Van der Stelt was mentioning, there are many meetings that we have with planning, housing, and elected officials to offer the different incentive packages that are available. The ones that housing can offer are through the development charge assistance if they meet certain affordability targets, definitions, criteria. At this point, we have a couple conversations as well about affordable home ownership development opportunities. So it's not just rental, it's also looking at some of the other opportunities to create housing options throughout the continuum. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Do appreciate that. But maybe just one more question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Can you be specific about what this has resulted in? What are the tangible results of these conversations? I know it's a difficult conversation to have with an organisation that's essentially profit-driven, when, you know, we're looking at the social side of affordable housing, not what's the minimum that people will be prepared to buy from me. So I do appreciate it's a long-run affair, but if we rely totally on the municipal and not-for-profit sector, we're always going to be behind the ball on this one. And I'm anxious that we step up our game with the development community. And it may be that we have to think about inclusionary zoning. And I know we've talked about this in our new official plan update, but that, in my experience, when I was living in the UK, almost, I think everywhere, a new subdivision required 10% of the homes that were being built to be in that, what we would describe as affordable housing category. And I think that forcing mechanism is something I would like to see applied both in the county and in the city.
Very briefly, we do know that the current incentives we have may not be enough to bring certain players to the table. So the development charge assistance by itself may not be. We've understood throughout creating incentives, sometimes it's the layering effect. We call that the lasagna method, where you layer several incentives together. And sometimes that's what makes the difference. So there are some conversations about getting DC charges plus that CIP in the certain areas. If you layer those 2 pieces together, that might be enough to make it financially a viable model. One of the things we are planning to bring back is a report on current incentives that we do have in place now, but also some other incentives that committee council might want to consider in addition to create that layering. Sometimes it takes several different incentives together to make it work. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. That's time. Any other requests to speak, question or comment on the motion before us as amended? It is amended, so Seeing none, we'll go to the vote on this then. Those in favor, show of hands, please. That carries. We don't need to.
Our votes count.
I can see your votes on the screen. Thank you, Mayor. For those participating remotely, the chair is being heckled from the back row. So I believe that concludes our business before us for this meeting today, folks. Thanks very much for joining. We're going to take a few minutes and then come back with the next one, which is called something different. Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors. So we'll take a couple of minutes and we'll see you back shortly. Okay.
Councillor Bell and Mayor Bailey, we need to have a subcommittee that we have for we could have a meeting right now if we had a subcommittee we were all on. And in the in-between time, we could knock one out. Councillor Miller too. Oh, Councillor Bell, I sent you an email with some updates on inclusionary zoning in Toronto. They've passed some legislation there specifically, and some of it's ambitious. Acorn did a lot with it. Yeah, they're looking at getting up to 22% inclusionary zoning in 2030.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
No worries. It just happened last month.
Yeah, but I must say I was under the impression from our planning staff that we had to go through a few provincial hoops to make this happen.
They have the Toronto Act. They have extra powers, but as Toronto goes, so tends to go the rest of the province. So if they're doing it and it becomes a success, I think it's something that you'll see the province open up to more communities. And I think there are a lot of communities that will demonstrate need. And if Toronto demonstrates success and other communities demonstrate need, then hopefully we'll see that continue as a policy option.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's
well,
also,
hopefully we can lobby to that effect as well, Councillor Bell, LaPerriere.
yeah, it's also part of my understanding that Toronto got this because it was largely tied to transit and the population. And so the rest of us who really want to work on inclusionary zoning or didn't meet those, but I think you're right. I think this is the way we all need to go.
Yeah, there's no reason it can't happen in smaller communities. It just it would help a lot. And then we hear a lot, and Councillor Vanderstel, to your point earlier, we hear a lot from county developers that they don't understand the funding systems, they don't understand the scale, they don't understand some of the, and they'd like some guidance on that to see about feasibility, because for a lot of them it's a new product that they'd be to look at in that point of view. It's a new product for them. So if they haven't done it, but with inclusionary zoning, all those developers would be more skilled at the affordable and attainable housing piece because they all have to do it, right? And that would create a lot of ingenuity and innovation in the market. So
I tend to agree with you, Mark. I mean, if we're looking for demonstrating need, I don't need any more indication than people walking from Brant County to Brantford for services, for crying out loud. We know there's a need that's demonstrated. Perhaps it's not a matter of carrot anymore. Perhaps it's a matter of stick.
Well, lasagna and stick. That's
there you go. Lasagna and stick. That's right.
I think the chair is calling order.
Welcome back, folks. The clerk has the roll. This is the Brantford Local Housing Corporation Board of Directors meeting for December 2021. Does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? Seeing none, we have no presentations, no delegations. There are no items for consideration. I'd like to get a mover and a seconder, however, for the consent items before us today. If I could, moved by Councillor Wall, seconded by right here, Mr. Chair, Councillor Sless. It's so hard to see the two guys at the back of the room without a rear view mirror. So any discussion on either of the two items in consent? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read in the report that Jones, Lang, and LaSalle is doing a building condition assessments.
We're on, sorry, this is item 5.2, Councillor.
I believe
Report,
it's
report.
5.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Sorry, I should have asked for separations. I did not. So we're on item 5.2. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Jones Lang LaSalle's doing a building condition assessment of the units. But I'm wondering if, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, have they done an energy audit or assessment of these units at some time in the past? Just looking for opportunities to save money somewhere down the road, make people's more comfortable.
Good morning. Donna Kirschnoff, Manager of Housing Operations, and through the chair. We have not done a comprehensive review of all units. When we do have opportunity to apply for funding and where there has been an audit required for energy, we do go out and get that information for that particular application. But no, we have not done anything across the board, but this is something that we have discussed and look forward to doing in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit surprised, given that both municipalities have declared a climate change emergency, but maybe that's something we could focus on in the future. So, okay, thank you.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Ferrier, you're next in the queue. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my question is just about the work orders in 5.2, 1.2 of 5.2, the day-to-day maintenance work orders piece. It says here, to date, a total of 5,036 work orders have been completed in 2021, compared to 4,620 for the same period last year, which represents an increase of 416 completed work orders. I'm wondering, if for a little context on that, is that some of that numbers were down due in the height of COVID because people didn't want folks coming into their units and fixing things? And if it is or if it isn't, what are we looking at? And are we looking at an increasing work order piece? And how did we get all those done? That's a substantial increase. So just wanted a little context there before voting.
Yes, good question. Yes, thank you. Through the chair, COVID did have a significant impact on the number of work orders that we were able to have done. Up until the spring of this year, we were not going into the units unless the work that needed to be done was required due to an emergency. Also, there has been resources on the city side, and so we have been able to hire an additional maintenance servicer, and we are able to get through those work orders that are required in our units.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Vanderstel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really happy to see, based on the 360 tenants in Brant Tower and Lauren Towers, that we're getting somewhere on the flooring and the generator and the water, which is all, really basic needs there. I'm particularly happy to see that we're considering the installation of the common room. It's frustrating to see that we haven't done that already, but based on the issues that we've had with heating in that building, and thank you to Councillor Miller for walking through some of the teeth on going after the contractor that supplied that. It's good to see that we're taking measures under the climate emergency to make sure that we actually insulate our buildings properly. That's good. Now, based on the security counts from calls coming from Brant Towers, Lauren Towers, and the visits for trespassing and other undesirable activities down there, do we have a good sense on timing of when we will have cameras functioning, operating, and be able to be monitored from a remote location for those residents there?
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, Deb, I don't know if you would like to step in, but there was a conversation with facilities, and the RFQ has been put out, and we are working at getting the cameras installed. I know that there is priority for the Lauren and Brant Towers, and we've discussed that with facilities, and it is part of the RFQ process.
And have we picked a date? Do we have a date? Do we know when this might happen?
At this time, I don't have a specific date. The conversations, the way that it's looking currently, it'd be Q1.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Just due to the proximity of the downtown core and the nature of the complaints that are generated from the residents there and the frequency thereof, I do have legitimate concerns for our staff, concerns for our residents, concerns for the amount of resources that are taken up in trying to monitor what is virtually an unmonitorable camera system there. It takes a lot of staff time. So thank you. I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Also, thank you. I see no further requests for speaking opportunities, so we will go to the vote on the consent items. Show of hands, those in favor, please. And that carries. Thank you very much. That concludes our business with respect to Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation. We'll take a minute and then we'll move on with the next item on the agenda.
All right. See you later.
Thank you.
County staff
County
are not
folks.
needed, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yes. Have a good day, county folks. Good to see you again. Okay, we'll get started. Brantford Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation Board of Directors. We have the roll call. Conflicts of interest, folks? Nope. No presentations, no delegations. Let me get a mover and seconder for everything that's before us on the agenda. Councillor Wall, Councillor Antosky, thank you very much. We have 5.1.1 and 5.2. Discussion on either of those items. Councillor Vanderstoep.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think it's 5.2. I'm fairly certain.
Yes, that's the third quarter report, Councillor. Yeah.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Great. With your leave, just a question through to Marlene or Deb or whoever might be able to answer. During the third quarter, it says on page 7 that there were 0 unit turnovers. Is this common for these two buildings, that the turnover rate is so low?
Yes, through the chair. It is. What we see when we have a market such as ours, where there isn't a lot of affordable housing, we see that our tenants are staying in our units longer. In some cases, tenants will move on to private landlords or into home ownership because of the market. The rental market has increased incredibly, and so has the real estate values. So therefore, we are seeing that our tenants have chosen to stay with us for longer periods of time.
And that would be the case for many of our properties as well, correct?
This is correct, yes.
Okay, so if we were to think of these services in terms of a service conveyor belt with varying degrees of needs and servicing by the city and the county, this is just an indicator of another bottleneck. Is that correct? We're just not seeing people move through these properties. We're seeing them stay, correct?
This is correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Don. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. I don't see hands raised, so we'll go to the vote on this. Those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And that concludes our business today. Thanks for attending. We'll see you all soon. Oh, I should say before we go, people on the other side of the camera saw a glitch today. What we saw in here was some remarkable fast work by IT staff, by Norris and by Chris and staff to get us back online. We nosed in with about 4 minutes to spare before we would have been adjourned by rules and procedures. So well done, guys. Thanks. See you later.
Excellent work, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see you later.